Morning. Honorable Dean of the Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Honorable Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, Student Affairs and Cooperation, Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Respected Chairman of the Natalis of the Faculty of Law. Distinguished invited speakers, Professor Ward Scott, Ms. Dorothea Wamiser, Mr. Iqbal Damani, Mr. Igusti Agung Madewardana, Ms. Sekar Banjaran Aji, esteemed professors and lecturers, partners and colleagues, and beloved participants attending both online and on-site. Welcome to the International Seminar on Land Grabs, Climate Change, and Disasters, reflecting rule of law and its protection to citizens in recent Indonesia's politics. My name is Dini Meyana, and I will be your Master of Ceremony for today. It is truly an honor to accompany you throughout these important academic discussions. Ladies and gentlemen, this international seminar is organized by Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada, as part of the 80th Natalis, Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. This seminar continues the faculty's commitment to addressing contemporary legal and societal challenges, particularly in relation to environmental governance, climate change, and the protection of citizens' rights within the framework of the rule of law. Through this seminar, we aim to exchange ideas and perspectives on how law and policy can respond to land conflicts, climate change, and disaster in today's political and social context. Please be informed that a Google form will be distributed at the end of seminar for attendance confirmation. Participants who wish to obtain an electronic certificate are required to attend the seminar until its conclusion and complete the form accordingly. To officially begin this seminar, let us stand together to sing Indonesia Raya, followed the hymn Gadjah Mada. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand.
Indonesia Raya.
Next, we will proceed to the opening remarks and the official opening of today's seminar. May I respectfully invite the Vice Dean for Academic Affairs, Student Affairs and Cooperation Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Profesor Adrianto Dwi Nugroho SH Advanced LLM LLD, to deliver the opening remarks and officially open the seminar.
Honorable speakers, Professor Ward Berenschot from the University of Amsterdam, Ms. Dorthea Wabizer from Yayasan Pustaka Bentala Rakyat, who I believe is joining us online, Mr. Muhammad Iqbal Damanik from Greenpeace, Southeast Asia, Dr. Igusti Agung Madawardana from the Faculty of Law, Universitas Gadjah Mada. Ladies and gentlemen, a very good morning. It is indeed a very good morning today. The sun shines over Yogyakarta, whereas the past 2 days it was a bit cloudy in the morning. So on behalf of the Dean and the faculty members of the Faculty of Law UGM, I would like to extend my warmest welcome to all of you, to our faculty. This international seminar is titled Land Grabs, Climate Change and Disasters, Reflecting Rule of Law and Its Protection of Citizens in Contemporary Indonesian Politics. It is part of our series of events held in the occasion of the 80th anniversary of our faculty. And the topic could not be discussed in a better time, as recently the country has been hit by a series of natural disasters. The landslides occurred in West Java and floods in Aceh have led to many lost their lives or homes. One might say that disasters are acts of nature. However, as part of the academic community, we are responsible for looking at the matters thoroughly. This seminar is designed to open up discussion on issues concerning land governance and environmental protection in their relation with prevention and mitigation of natural disasters. It aims to provide recommendation for the government as well as the society in general as to ensure that the world we live in has a brighter future. So I would like to thank the committee for the preparation of the seminar, and I do hope that all of you will enjoy the seminar. Thank you. I was asked to officially open the seminar, so now I declare the seminar is open. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor. Ladies and gentlemen, with the seminar now officially open, we will proceed to the main seminar session, which will be guided by our esteemed moderator. It is my pleasure to invite Ms. Sekar Banjaran Aji, forest campaigner at Greenpeace Indonesia and coordinator at the Public Interest Law Network, as well as proud alumnus of UGM Faculty of Law, to take the floor as today's moderator.
Sugeng Enjang. Selamat pagi, good afternoon. Sugeng Enjang, it means good morning. I'm Javanese, so I think it's a very great way to greeting you in my language, because today's, I think it's very much connected that just a few days ago, there is a Puerto Rican singer singing in the Super Bowl, and this is the first time that there is a full Puerto Rican singer in American industry, and this is, I think, we celebrate how we celebrate language. So when we are talking about decoloniality, language is something that's very important. So I think it's better to open this morning with Sugeng Enjang. Thank you so much for the dean, the academics, and great scholars that have been here. Mas Lambang, the leader of this team, LSG fellows, and all the Faculty of Law of UGM folks that I love the most. It feels different sitting here today, not as a student who actually survived the deadlines, but as someone who believes that law actually can shape the future. I would recall a bit. 10 years ago, I just law student coming from the middle class family from Wonogiri, who dream become one of Greenpeace lawyers, and not really knows actually what Greenpeace is, but I think that time combating the polluters is something that cool. So I want to be one of those campaigners. Here there is Pak Ricardo who actually heard that my dream about what I dream about. And I talked to him about my dream. And today, here I am as a proud climate lawyer and who did litigation for Greenpeace campaign. The thing about this law school, actually this law school taught me about the climate law is not just environmental issues. This is about power, about justice, and who gets to decide it, whose future much matters. So happy anniversary to my favorite law school, and I hope this law school can create more hope for the victims of land grabs, climate change, and also a disaster. So once again, my name is Sekar Banjaranaji. You can call me Sekar. I will be moderating this session. Outside my work for Greenpeace, I work also for coordinating public interest lawyer network, a lawyer who helps the victim doing pro bono things and help them actually get real justice because of justice matters. So I will also encourage everyone here to probably do the same thing because we need more public interest lawyers. Now, before the starting the event, I want to actually talk that today we have some sort of rundown. This is part of opening, and then after that we will have the presentation from the distinguished speakers, and after that we have a bit of follow-up from moderator, and after that we can go to talk more actually, to take, I think we take more question as possible, and then I will back to the speaker, to each speaker can give the final remarks. Now I think it's a time to inviting the speakers and also introducing the speakers before the presentation begin. The first speaker, I think, they are not here, but they are joining us via Zoom. There is Dorothea Eve Webizer. I call it DV. DV is actually researchers and campaigner coming from the Yayasan Pusaka Bentala Rakyat. She is a Papuan woman who very strong, talking about the time and the struggles there, and actually empowering others, indigenous people from Papua. Say hi, Deve.
Hello everyone. I hope my voice is clear and you can hear me clearly.
It's very clear. Thank you so much, Deve. And the second speaker, I think I would love to invite him to here in the stage. Is actually my colleague, Iqbal Damanik. Give applause for Iqbal Damanik. Iqbal Damanik is a manager, climate and energy from a Greenpeace, my college. We are before he is joining as a climate energy manager. We are in the same department. We are in the forest department. Thank you so much, Iqbal. And the third speaker, actually, I adore the most. Actually, Beli Igam, I call it. It's I Gusti Agung Mado Wardana, associate professor, Faculty of Law of UGM, and senior researchers at Law Social Justice UGM. Thank you so much, Beli Igam. Yeah. And the last but not least is actually, I think everyone here coming here for him, mostly. Pak Ward Berescott, Professor Dr. Ward Berescott, the professor of the comparative political anthropology coming from the University of Amsterdam and senior researchers KITLV. Please welcome Pak Ward. So again, we will have the time for the speaker to share their presentation. It's about probably 15 until 20 minutes, each speaker. And after that, we will have the discussion. And now, I want to start before the speaker actually presented their ideas. That, ladies and gentlemen, in the end of the December, this is actually after I talked to Pak Herlambang about these ideas of this seminar. In very early morning, I got a message coming to Bang Iqbal. It's very beautiful morning for me in the 30th of December. The message, actually, guys, I got chicken without a head. And this is threatening me and my family. That day, actually, I need to go to the doctor for medical checkup. So we are stopping there and we'll discuss. This thing happened, and the message actually that Iqbal received is very clear, that he had to stop being outspoken. The first thing that I recall was how often Iqbal and I and others Greenpeace campaigner had repeatedly expressed our serious concern on the nexus of the land grab, climate, and disaster that flood and landslide happen in Sumatra. It's also among the Aceh, West Sumatra, and also North Sumatra last November. And I think those time, it's very clear that it proved about that nexus. So after the disasters, all the campaigners from a Greenpeace, we are stopped doing our job. We are focusing on sharing our findings on deforestation data, companies who operating on this area, and who politically exposed person who that got things about that land. We are actively exposed to finding and with it non-stop. Besides the working with our allies in North Sumatra in humanitarian response to support the victims. Because of until today, still many of them didn't get help from the government. And what we got in the return was not the systemic change, but a threat to us. I get the reflective question on this condition. And I think this is an open question also for everyone. When climate impact intensively, will you be defending the system as it is, or we helping to transform it? And without the further ado, I will probably give the time to the first speaker, Defe, to sharing the Defe's idea and um, and also critics probably for whatever you do. Defe, time is yours.
Okay. Yeah. So, hello again, everyone. Thank you so much for having me today. I apologize I couldn't attend the seminar in person and can only be present online because I'm not in Jogja at the moment or in Indonesia. Once again, my name is Dortea Wabisir, but people know me more as Defe, like what Kakak Sekar has mentioned. I work in a CSO called Pusaka Bentala Rakyat. We advocate for indigenous people's rights and environmental justice in the southern part of the island of Papua, which are Merauke, Buvendigul, and Mapi, and also in the western part of the island, which are Sorong and South Sorong. And today, in relations with the theme of the event, land grabs, climate crisis, and disasters, reflecting rule of law and its protection to citizens in recent Indonesian politics, I wanted to talk about the rights of indigenous peoples with the study case of Merauke's National Strategy Project. A little bit disclaimer, I'm not from the law background. I studied international relations before, so in this seminar, I think my role mostly is to share the study case, and then it will complete it by the other panelists. I have a super short presentation, and I wish to be able to share it. I can read. I will try to use my.
It's already shared, Defe, in the screen.
Oh no, it's
Oh,
not
oh,
my
not yet.
presentation.
Oh, still man.
I'll share it.
Defe, do you want to share yourself, Dev?
Yes, I can share it so that I can have the control of the
Okay.
PowerPoint if it's
Yeah.
okay.
So please, the admin.
Okay.
Ah,
I,
now you get it?
yeah.
Yes.
I hope you can see it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll try to use my time wisely because as you mentioned, Kaka, I only have 15 minutes. So yeah, wanted to look at the idea of the rise of IPs with the study case of Merauke. Maybe some of you have heard about the case, but maybe some of you has not, but just wanted to share the problems that we see or what did the government do regarding these situations of what happens in Papua at the moment. Just a little bit background of Merauke NSP. At the end of 2023, the government or the President Jokowi, Jokowi was the president at that time. He mentioned that there will be another food estate project in Merauke, and at that time the plan is to open 2 million hectares area for sugarcane plantation, sugar factory, and its infrastructure, and also the new creation of rice fields. And it will happen on top of the customer line of 5 tribes. The total area of Merauke is 4 million hectares. So if the government said that they will use more than 2 million hectares, it means half of the area. And when the community heard about this project, it is very hard for us to find more information. The public information regarding these cases it's hard. Me myself, I was in Morocco at that time, trying to find or get the data from um, different government institutions in Morocco, but most of the time they always say things like, "Oh, we don't know. It's the project by the central government, and so we still don't get the data. So it is a long project to be able to get this map." And when the communities heard about this project, most of them reminded with the previous project, which are MIFE, Morocco Integrated Food and Energy Estate, or the project way before when the Dutch still in Indonesia, or with the Kumbe project. So when they heard about it, they did a lot of protests regarding the situation, and then the protests are coming directly from the grassroots level. For example, this is a picture in one of the village in Merauke. This is a quail village, where they have this kind of banner where it stated, kami bisa hidup tanpa sawit dan tebu, tapi tidak tanpa tanah dan hutan. I think the literal translation would be, we can live without palm and sugarcane, but we cannot without land and forest. And together with the community, also did the demonstration at the local level, which is in Merauke. In Merauke, because we tried to ask some questions, but we heard nothing from the government. So we also did the demonstration and reject the project at the local level. And then at the end of 2024, in October, we also did another demonstration in front of the Ministry of Defense, because militarization is the military have heavy impact in this project as well. They have big roles, other than starting from guarding the area of the concession, but also working as the farmer in the rice fields, and their other role. And then this is where the intimidation started to happen towards the indigenous community, the representative that come to do the demonstration, but also to other environmental human rights defender that work on the issue. And based on this whole situation, we found that so far for this NSP case, there is no proper FPIC process that happened at the community. And then there is limited access of public information. It is so hard to get clear data right away about what will happen in front of our home or in front of their home. And we found a lot of different human rights violations related from the rights of indigenous people based on UNRIP, or also related with the rights to live in a healthy environment, and also related with freedom of expression. And this is connected to the civic space, but for voicing the voices or the rejection, but also related to the presence of the military in villages or in Merauke, where it gave intimidation to the people physically or even mentally. And because of that, we tried to send a letter to the UN at the end of 2024. We sent an urgent appeal to using the special procedure mechanism. And in the beginning of 2025, we got response from the special rapporteur on the right to food. He also asked the other 8 of special rapporteur to read 2 letters one for the one of the sugarcane companies and one for the Indonesian government that's stating their concern regarding the situation that is happening in Merauke. They are focusing more on the concern related with the right to food, the right of women and children, the rights of water, and also one thing that I think important in the letter is that they also mention the local, regional, and global implication of the massive deforestation that is happening in Merauke. And the government's reply, so the one on the left is the letter for one of the company, the sugarcane company, and the one at the right is the reply from the government to the letter that's sent by the special rapporteur. And you can find it online. And in this letter, basically, the government said very template thing. They were mentioning a lot regarding the recognition situation of the IPC in Papua in general. Instead of responding to the questions, they say that, well, Indonesian government recognize indigenous people that recognized by law or masyarakat hukum adat, and we aware that there is these activities happen in Merauke, but based on our knowledge, there isn't any communities that trying to get the recognition to be the masyarakat hukum adat in Merauke at the moment. So it's still legal for the companies to operate in Merauke. So, and what will happen after it? After the government respond, at the end of last year, Prabowo, the current president, mentioned that he deleted one of the NSP, National Strategic Project. For example, here, the one at the top is the decree regarding the list of NSP, and it was in 2023, if I'm not mistaken. The number or the list about the Merauke NSP was there, and then at the new one, the new list of NSP, there is a Merauke, but then we found out that it is actually expand not to only Merauke, but it will expand to the another regencies, and it changed from Merauke to South Papua Province Food Estate. So it will expand to all to Mapi, Asmat, and Buvendigul as well, with other commodities added, not only sugarcane and rice fields in Merauke, but also um, um, palm plantation, cattle farm, and other infrastructure to support it. And other than expanding the area, the government keep doing the deforestation. So for example, at the end of 2025, based on our data, we publish it also in our yearly report, the deforested area reached the number of 40,790 hectare. So it's getting bigger, and then it's too fast. It was only announced 2 years ago, and then now it reached this number. And also the lost access of the women or the indigenous people in general to the forest. For example, I got this quotes in a movie called The Sky is Split Over Papua. If you have time to watch it in YouTube by Gecko Project, there's this one quote that I think can give pictures how the deforestation give impact to the communities where this woman, she said, if the forest is like this, what can we do? In time, our culture will disappear. Well, will birds make nests? We want to make loincloths, but it's hard to find trees for the robe. We want to make headdresses from cassowary feathers, but they are no longer in the forest. The fruit tree have been cleared, so where will the cassowary find food? So the project cut a lot of access bit and then ruin not only the indigenous people's rights, environmental rights, but also the relationships, and it's related with the existence of the IPs in this case. And then there's also a lot of horizontal conflict because of the case. For example, this is Bapak Vincent Quipalo. He considered as one of the environmental human rights defender. He got the status from the National Commission on Human Rights, and he experienced horizontal conflicts every year. So the companies use another clan in the tribe to ask him to give up his land, but he's still there protecting his land. But yeah, the intimidation that he got is a lot. So we are working and advocating with Papa Vincent at the moment. And also, this is in Wanang village. We were there, and I was there personally talking to groups of women. They were sharing their stories related with how the John Lin Group, the business, the company that opened the area for rice fields, they already work. They have a different kitchen to support their workers. But then when the women try to go and sell their vegetable to this kitchen, all of them said that they don't have money. They cannot buy the vegetable from the woman. So the women have to walk from the Wanam village to go to the Wogikel, the area where most crowded. It's like 5 to 6 hours walk to be able to sell their vegetable. And then it creates another different issues with the woman related with their health, but also if they didn't manage to sell something, it means another problem will happen in their household. And also, we're still waiting from the results from the judges related with the request by the coalition, the GRAM, who asked the government to reviewing the article related with NSP. So these are uh, the example of what I wanted to say is this response by the government towards the concern of the rapporteurs in the beginning by the letter shows that the minimum effort from the government consider the rights of IPs or environmental situation in Papua or in Indonesia as a whole. We saw cases in Sumatra. We saw cases of floodings not only in Sumatra but in other area, in Java, in Kalimantan. And then a few weeks ago, we suddenly saw snow. It was snowing in Timika, in Temagapura. So the climate crisis is there. It's showing the current situation, but still, it feels like the government didn't have a focus or concern regarding this whole situation, and in fact, doing more and more harm to the environment, especially towards the IPs who lives on their land. So this whole situation for Papua specifically um, um, uh, threatening the people, the environment, but also the relationship between the people and the environment. And it's related with the existence of a community. So that's just to show you how minim the government's play role in this kind of case. I know that maybe the other panelists will add more to the stories. So I think that's all. I'm sorry, Kakak Sekar, I used 2 more minutes, but that's all for me. And if you have questions or anything, we can discuss at the discussion part. Thank you.
Thank you so much, DP. DP highlighting about the national strategic project who happened in the south of Papua, which now, based on our data in Greenpeace, is the biggest deforestation plan in the world, which contain 2 million hectares of forests that will be removed. In those part is actually extended the what we called about land grabs and also climate, and it's also already shows some of the disasters. And this is some condition when our government is not really taking care of what happened in Sumatra. It's go away and it's go on. by their plan. And what makes terrifying in south of Papua is about how the ambition actually support not only by the government but also the corporation who taking many things from the land. They actually building the roads, 135 kilometers of roads to cut off all the forests, and they also extract them to the paddy fields, the sugar cane, the palm oil, which is actually sounds familiar with the sound of colonialization. Thank you, Defe, for the story, and to remember that Indonesian actually not just a single kind of individual. We are plurals. Law itself is also something that plurals, and on those nexus we found indigenous people that Defe already shows, and it's actually something that's very unique. Now I give the floor for Bang Iqbal. I didn't, Bang Iqbal. And do you want to sit here or? Okay, let's go on the take. Bang Iqbal will actually highlight some of the what happened in those nexus and how actually we are now and who actually got something on that. The floor is yours, Bang Iqbal.
Okay, thank you, Sekar. And because I never using podium on speech, so I choose to speech on podium in UGM now, then sit there. And thank you, Sekar, for the introductions. And first, I want to apologize because I'm going to deliver my presentations in Bahasa because I think most of us can speak in in Bahasa. And I hope that not downgrade this seminar from international seminar to a national seminar. So I apologize for that, everyone's. And also because I understand my English is not really good and your Bahasa is better than my Bahasa. We have a long discussion with Pak Ward, with Zoom, when we trying to write a paper, ya Pak Ward. So Pak Ward always ask me in Bahasa English and I answer in Bahasa English, and after that Pak Ward will ask me in Bahasa Indonesia. So it means that Pak Ward Bahasa Indonesia is better than my English. That's true, Pak Ward. Okay, everyone. Kok jadi bahasa Inggris ya? Nama saya Iqbal Damanik, sekarang di Greenpeace Indonesia sebagai aktivis. Keren ya. Saya tadinya mikir aktivis, tapi let's say pekerja NGO, NGO laborers, let's say like that. Dan sebenarnya saya punya cita-cita menjadi scholars waktu kuliah, dan itu salah satu cita-cita yang cukup serius. Soalnya katanya cita-cita yang cukup serius, we put on our prey. So I put my aim as a scholars in every my prey. Tapi saya berakhir di Greenpeace. Semoga tidak berakhir ya. Saya masih menjalaninya di Greenpeace. Selain dilabelin sebagai aktivis, pekerja NGO, terakhir saya juga mendapat gelar sebagai Wahabi lingkungan. But Wahabi lingkungan make a good discourses about environmental in Indonesia. So I will trying to speech saya hari ini adalah mencoba untuk membongkar akar masalah dari climate crisis. Jadi selanjutnya, oh ya, That's the difference between scholars and the activists. So 1.5, jadi 1,5 derajat adalah peringatan terakhir bagi kita dalam bentuk suhu di bumi. Lalu kenapa kemudian kita berbicara soal suhu? Karena suhu bumi pasca revolusi industri yang naik di 1,5 itu adalah warning dari kesepakatan Paris, dari Paris Agreement yang menyatakan bahwa panas kita tidak boleh lebih dari 1,5. Kalau seandainya lebih dari 1,5 derajat dari masa revolusi industri, maka kita akan menghadapi yang namanya bencana. Cerita ini sebenarnya sudah datang dari tahun-tahun yang lalu. Tahun 1992 ada kesepakatan Rio Conventions dan itu menciptakan 3 UN body. UNFCCC, we know that climate COP, lalu kemudian UN desertifications, penggurunan, lalu yang terakhir adalah UN CBD untuk biodiversity. Tapi belakangan yang paling sering kita kenal adalah UN COP atau Conference of Parties yang terakhir ada di Brazil di Amazon 31 dan tahun 2015 ada COP 15 untuk kesepakatan Paris. Tapi dari tahun 92 ceritanya masih berulang. Ceritanya di tahun 97 protokol Kyoto itu juga bicara tentang bahwa panas suhu bumi tidak boleh dari 1,5 sehingga ada kesepakatan protokol Kyoto. Itu tahun 97. Kita bicara 1,5 sejak tahun 92 dan tahun 97. Dan kita mencapainya pada saat tahun yang sama, pada saat Paris Agreement. It means that we are doing nothing. The government, the global leader doing nothing to decrease the temperature of Earth. So, jadi tahun 2015 dan kita sekarang mencapai 1,5 di tahun 2024, 2025 dan 2026. Para ahli di IPCC, Interpanel for Climate Change, menyebutkan kalau kita lewat dari 1,5 maka yang terjadi adalah katastrofik. Kejadian ini akan terjadi 8 kali lebih banyak dari apa yang terjadi dari tahun-tahun sebelumnya. Dan begitulah ketika Sumatera menjadi peringatan terakhir sebenarnya bagi kita. Jadi dari mana panas tadi? Itu adalah dari tingginya emisi yang kita perbuat. Lalu dia akan menaikkan suhu bumi yang kita sebut sebagai perubahan iklim pada masa itu. Lalu kemudian perubahan iklim ini berubah menjadi climate crisis karena sudah ada bencana. Jadi secara logiknya adalah pemerintah diminta untuk menurunkan emisinya. Maka kemudian di kesepakatan Paris ada disebut sebagai NDC, National Determination Contribution. Tapi sebenarnya kalau saja seluruh negara melaksanakan 100% komitmen NDC mereka, itu baru menurunkan 2,7% dari total emisi yang ada. Karena hampir 50% emisi ada di fossil fuel industry atau extractive industry. Tapi itu pun pemerintah belum mencapainya. Indonesia bahkan mendapatkan gelar we are not really ambitious dari climate action tracker. Jadi kita saat ini business as usual, bahkan NDC kita itu tidak menuju ke kesepakatan Paris karena kita masih menggunakan VOLU, forest and land use sebagai tumpuan. Nah, terkait dengan topik hari ini, saya ingin masuk kemari. Ada yang bilang scholars katanya harus menggunakan pisau analisis. Jadi saya coba-coba jadi scholars hari ini menggunakan pisau analisis. Tapi ini tidak begitu disiplin untuk mother of thought karena saya nggak tahu juga. Hill dan Bu Tania Muralai waktu itu menyusun power of exclusion. Saya nggak tanya mother of thought-nya. Tapi saya pikir kira-kira ini adalah 4 power of exclusions adalah modal yang sangat penting untuk melihat relasi kuasa, bahwa apa yang terjadi di Sumatera bukan hanya sekedar bencana yang terjadi oleh krisis iklim, tapi juga krisis tata kuasa lahan dan legitimasi politik. Kita bongkar coba satu-satu. Dari sisi Bu Taniali dan Hil di sini membaginya menjadi 4. Regulations, lalu kemudian market, lalu kemudian force, lalu kemudian legitimasi. Nah, dalam proposisi yang saya bangun di dalam ini bahwa katastrofik atau disaster yang terjadi di Sumatera itu adalah gabungan dari 2 hal. Pertama, hydrometeorological disaster atau climate crisis yang bergabung kepada degradation ekosistem yang disebabkan oleh terlalu ekstraktifnya kita pada wilayah leuser. Jadi sebenarnya wilayah Sumatera bagian utara itu adalah bentang Bukit Barisan atau kita bisa bilang wilayah leuser yang sudah dieksploitasi sejak zaman kolonialisasi, sejak zaman Belanda. Ekstraktivisme sudah besar di wilayah sana. Mari kita bedah satu-satu dari 4 pisau analisis yang coba diberikan Bu Li dan Tania Muraili dan kawan-kawan. Pertama di regulasi. Kalau kita lihat Undang-Undang Minerba dari awal sampai akhir, Undang-Undang Minerba, mineral dan batu bara dalam konteks pertambangan menganggap seluruh wilayah di Indonesia adalah wilayah ruang kosong. Jadi disebut wilayah pertambangan adalah seluruh wilayah Indonesia dianggap seluruh wilayah pertambangan. Lalu tahapan berikutnya setelah wilayah pertambangan adalah wilayah usaha pertambangan. Dimanapun yang namanya ada resources, ada sumber daya, apakah itu nikel, mineral dan batu bara, maka dia naik dari wilayah pertambangan menjadi wilayah usaha pertambangan. Jadi seluruh wilayah yang memiliki resources atau sumber daya adalah wilayah usaha pertambangan. Jadi termasuk Pianemo yang ada di Raja Ampat. Kementerian ESDM melalui Bahlil bilang bahwa itu tidak dibebanin oleh izin. Betul, tapi itu adalah wilayah usaha pertambangan yang memungkinkan dia untuk diusahakan. Dan perspektif Undang-Undang Pertambangan tidak melihat apa yang ada di atasnya dan siapa yang memilikinya. Sekitar 2015 saya ke Kalimantan Selatan, Pak Ward, di Serongga namanya, Desa Serongga. Ada satu perusahaan yang dimiliki oleh, saya sebut namanya ya, nggak apa-apa karena memang dimiliki. BMCP, Bara Mega Citra Persada kalau tidak salah. Dimiliki sama Haji Isam. Salah satu yang kita tahu ya itulah. Lalu kemudian dengan Haji Amir begitu, ada 2 kuasa. Itu persis di pinggir jalan nasional. Lalu kemudian saya tanya kepada pemerintah waktu itu, kalau seandainya ada batu bara di bawah jalan nasional ini apa yang dilakukan? Yang dilakukan adalah they will move the street and they will digging the coal. So jadi mereka lebih memilih untuk menggali batu baranya dan memindahkan jalan nasionalnya. Jadi itu terjadi dalam penelitian tahun sekitar 2017-2018. Itu perspektif regulasi. Nah, di dalam perspektif market, di dalam bisnis ini, dalam perspektif mereka kan logika pasarnya adalah menilai tanah berdasarkan tukar dan produksi. Jadi hutan tanaman industri tidak berpikir, misalnya ya, saya tidak berpikir apakah itu adalah kesatuan hidrologis gambut yang besar. Kalau seandainya dia kering, maka dia akan mudah terbakar. Hutan tanaman industri tidak akan berpikir begitu, tapi mereka berpikir ini adalah lahan gambut yang mudah atau bernilai uang untuk ditanamin atau dibuka lahan gambutnya. Tapi saya taruh mark warna kuning di situ sebagai market dan menandain sebagai business and politics. Tapi nanti kita akan bahas ke situ. Force di sini adalah upaya memaksa sebenarnya yang kita tahu bahwa di Kalimantan Tengah dimanapun ketika terjadi konflik antara perusahaan dan masyarakat termasuk masyarakat adat yang selalu dihadapkan pemerintah terhadap masyarakat adalah militer dan polisi. Dan ini adalah bentuk dari pemaksaan. Setiap terjadi resistensi sosial ini terjadi. Ada satu cerita di Seruyan. Itu juga ada ditulis Pak Ward ya Pak, di buku Pak Ward soal keampahan hak di Seruyan. Ada konflik yang berkepanjangan. beberapa tahun yang lalu ada seorang anak muda yang diduga ditembak oleh polisi. Lalu dia berpulang, meninggal dunia. Dan kita tidak tahu statusnya sampai sekarang, siapa sebenarnya penembak ini. Tapi waktu itu viral dari kalangan pengamanan, ada satu cerita bahwa tembak kepalanya bubarkan massa. Itu datang dari wilayah pengamanan atau suara yang datang dari barisan polisi. Tapi begitulah cara pemaksaan ketika terjadi resistensi sosial. Mereka tidak berpikir tentang ini tanah milik siapa atau siapapun, tapi alat negara mampu memaksa untuk market atau pasar berjalan. Termasuk legitimasi yang terakhir. Saya mau ngambil, kayaknya waktu ini ditulis belum ada Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja ya, 2011. Kalau kita lihat Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, satu Undang-Undang Omnibus Law, tapi sebenarnya isinya bukan Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. PSN yang tadi disampaikan oleh DV Dortea, salah satunya ada di Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. Maka saya sebenarnya judulnya bukanlah Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja, tapi judul dari Undang-Undang Omnibus Law atau Cipta Kerja itu harusnya adalah Undang-Undang Penguasaan Lahan. Tapi demi mendapatkan legitimasi untuk bahwa pemerintah ingin membangun tenaga kerja, maka disebutlah namanya sebagai Undang-Undang Cipta Kerja. Saya berpikirnya inilah bentuk legitimasi yang coba dicari oleh pemerintah untuk mengatakan bahwa ini adalah pembangunan. Untuk mendapatkan legitimasi ini juga, pemerintah bahkan bersedia memberikan tambang kepada ormas yang tidak memiliki kemampuan untuk mengelola tambang. Salah satu mungkin teman-teman kita semua di sini ya. Sebut nama ormasnya boleh kan ya? Nahdlatul Ulama dan Muhammadiyah kemudian menerima proses pertambangan itu gitu. Bahwa kita tahu padahal ini udah sunset industry kira-kira begitu. Tapi apa kemudian keuntungan dari diberikannya ini? Diskursusnya kemudian adalah melegitimasi. Legitimasinya apa? Teman-teman Greenpeace akan disebut sebagai orang-orang yang melakukan fear-mongering. Lalu kemudian disebutkan sama saya, kenapa kemudian saya disebut sebagai Wahabi lingkungan? Karena saya tidak bersyukur dan tidak menerima berkah bahwa pohon itu adalah berkah, bahwa batu bara adalah berkah. Lalu saya tanya, bagaimana Anda memilih berkah ini dan mengembalikan ekosistem ke ekosistem awal? Lalu saya dijawab, mengapa Anda begitu peduli untuk mengembalikan ke ekosistem awal? Gitu. Jadi ini adalah legitimasi sebenarnya yang coba dibangun kepada publik. Mungkin kita yang paham di sini akan tertawa soal Wahabi lingkungan. Tapi Wahabi lingkungan di Qatar, para Wahabi di Qatar sana, di Arab Saudi sana, mereka tuh penyumbang 50% dari total fossil fuel di dunia. Gitu. Jadi itu sesuatu yang kontradiksi. Tapi kan kakanda kita yang satu itu memang paling pintar untuk mencari istilah. Pak Ward, I will tell you after this about what is it Wahabi lingkungan, Pak Ward. Nah, saya kembali ke soal market tadi. Tapi saya berpikir bahwa keempat ini itu tidak terbentuk dengan sendirinya. Ini dibentuk oleh relasi bisnis dan politik. Tadinya saya mau minjam istilahnya Pak Ferry Hadis dengan Richard Robinson tentang rise of capitalism di Indonesia dan yang terakhir soal oligarki. Tapi Mbak Linda dari kampus sebelah selalu bilang, Iqbal kamu nih kalau ada masalah semuanya dibilang oligarki. Apapun semua masalah Iqbal akan menjawab masalahnya adalah oligarki gitu. Dan hari ini saya akan bertahan, tapi sayangnya Mbak Linda nggak datang. Tahun 2013 tuh ada tulisan dari Mas Luki Jani di Prisma. Itu soal politik lokal sebenarnya, mengangkat Kalimantan Selatan, Kalimantan Timur dan Makassar. Dan mendapatkan satu proposisi bahwa negara dan kapital di Indonesia terstruktur melalui aliansi yang tertanam, bersifat transaksional dari elit politik dan bisnis. Dan ini membuat yang namanya konflik kepentingan dan bukan sekedar penyimpangan. Jadi saya menganggap keempat ini, regulasi, lalu kemudian market, lalu kemudian force, legitimasi, itu karena hubungan yang sangat kuat. Mas Luki menyebutnya di situ business cum political persons atau political persons cum business persons. Jadi kabur antara mana pengusaha, mana penguasa gitu. Kalau dulu Yoshihara Kunio mungkin punya erzat kapitalisme semu yang mampu membedakan apakah zaman Orde Baru kita ada wilayah semu, tapi belakangan mereka sudah menjadi satu. Dan penelitian Greenpeace menemukan juga bahwa hampir setengah dari anggota DPR dalam riset social network analysis memiliki hubungan atau afiliasi politik dengan jadi pengusaha dan DPR. Nah, tulisan yang terakhir juga ada tulisannya Pak Ward dan saya itu soal oligarchinization of democracy in Indonesia, hubungan bisnis dan politik. Jadi demokrasi elektoral itu tidak melemahkan kekuasaan oligarki, melainkan justru memfasilitasi oligarki di mana aktor bisnis dan politik semakin berusaha untuk masuk. Saya kita lagi-lagi sebut nama ya, karena aktivis kalau nggak sebut nama katanya nggak disebut aktivis. Ada pemotongan secara besar-besaran kuota batubara di Indonesia tahun 2026. Tapi ada perusahaan yang tidak kena atau 0% pemotongan batubara. Saya sebut, salah satunya adalah Adaro. Dimiliki oleh keluarga Thohir. Hubungannya dengan politik sudah bisa kan ya, nggak perlu kita jelasin. Mereka tidak mendapatkan pemotongan. Lalu yang kemudian adalah Bumi, KPC, punyanya keluarga Bakri. Mereka juga tidak mendapatkan pemotongan. Dan saya mencoba mencek perusahaan-perusahaan lain, semuanya mendapatkan potongan bahkan hampir 70%. Tapi perusahaan-perusahaan batubara yang memiliki relasi bisnis dan politik yang baik dengan pemerintah dalam sudut pandang penelitian dan menurut keyakinan saya, itu mereka tidak mendapatkan pemotongan. Jadi ini adalah conflict of interest. Nah, dari katastrofik dari tadi dan power exclusion yang diciptakan bisnis tadi, kita menghadapi pemerintah yang tidak mencoba untuk menyelesaikan masalah. Yang kita dapatin adalah performative governance. Performative governance salah satunya ada paper yang ditulis sama Zidiang soal satu wilayah di Cina. Soal bagaimana mereka menyelesaikan polusi dan sebagainya. Mereka performatif, mereka membuat baliho-baliho besar bahwa mereka peduli terhadap polusi. Mereka melakukan sidak. Kalau lihat sekarang tuh ada menteri yang tukang sidak gitu ya. Yang soal printer pun dibahas gitu. Printer 8 dibahas, tapi tidak membahas harga beras berapa banyak dan berapa besar pembukaan lahan hutan yang terjadi di Merauke. Jadi yang kita hadapin adalah performatif. Performative governance ini didukung oleh para influencer yang mereka memberikan ruang kepada pemerintah. Salah satunya adalah saya sebut nama lagi, Pak Bahlil. Idola kita semua. Pak Bahlil di salah satu podcast, baik podcastnya ESDM secara resmi mau podcast kasih solusi bilang begini. Sebelum bapak dan mama saya menikah, PT GAK itu udah ada. Jadi PT GAK yang salah satu yang melanggar hukum ada 5 dan 4 dicabut. Waktu itu ada tekanan publik yang besar, ada 5 dan 4 dicabut. Peristiwa ini dituliskan dengan baik oleh teman kami di Greenpeace, Budiarti Putri. Datang nggak ya? Ada Kak Putri. Teman-teman bisa baca di Indonesia at Melbourne. Soal performative governance dan kaitannya dengan Raja Ampat. Saya ambil di situ bahwa walaupun Putri bilang bahwa kalaupun pemerintah mendapatkan tekanan sosial yang sangat tinggi, tapi dan pemerintah memiliki kemampuan untuk melakukan itu, tapi pemerintah tidak mempunyai keinginan politik yang besar untuk melakukan perubahan. Buktinya apa? Dari 5 yang dicabut 4. Sampai sekarang yang 4 ini belum kita dapatkan bukti pencabutannya. Yang tidak dicabut adalah PT GAK. PT GAK yang tadi kata Pak Bahlil, sebelum ada ibunya dan bapaknya menikah, ini kan performatif ya, menikah, Saya nggak tahu menahu kenapa saya yang dipersalahkan. Padahal secara undang-undang sendiri, Pak Bahlil melalui kementeriannya, bukan Pak Bahlil ya, Menteri ESDM menerbitkan yang namanya RKAB per 2 tahun sekali dan kembali sekarang 1 tahun sekali. Artinya dia mengetahui bahwa rencana kerja, anggaran dan belanja atau perusahaan itu bisa bergerak atau tidak dari persetujuan dari Kementerian SDM. Yang paling penting adalah bukan cerita tentang apakah PT GAK ini sudah ada sebelum bapak atau ibunya lahir, atau dia orang Papua atau tidak. Setiap kita tanya, saya ini orang Papua, saya mencintai Papua. Padahal saya ingin bilang, kalau kau orang Papua, pasti kau jaga, kau punya hutan, kau jaga, kau punya laut. Itu baru orang Papua. Gitu. Jadi bukan berarti karena mentang-mentang dia baru dari mentang-mentang lagi udah jadi aktivisnya nih. Nah, sorry. Agak emosi memang kalau ngomongin Bapak yang saat ini ya. Tapi memang bukan soal itu gitu. Tapi PT GAK itu melakukan pelanggaran hukum. Yang siapapun tidak bisa membantah pelanggaran hukum itu. Karena secara jelas bahwa pulau yang di bawah 100 km persegi atau disebut sebagai tiny island di dalam Permen KKP adalah pulau yang tidak boleh ditambang. Baik itu untuk mineral dan batu bara. Clear, itu negative list. Tidak boleh, langsung tidak boleh. Tapi diterbitkan. Makanya kalau ini ada pejabat pemerintahan atau Bapak Ibu yang punya koneksi ke sana, sebutkan. Ada tidak pemerintah yang berani menyebutkan bahwa PT GAK tidak melanggar aturan? PT GAK secara benar-benar melanggar aturan, tapi mereka tidak dicabut. Dan tadi pagi saya juga mendapat berita bahwa Pak Bahlil bilang bahwa Prabowo setuju kalau Agincourt pertambangan Martabe yang ada di Batang Toru yang salah satu dari 28 perusahaan yang dicabut karena ada catastrophic disaster di Sumatera, itu Pak Bahlil bilang Pak Prabowo setuju untuk direaktivasi kembali kalau mereka melakukan pemulihan. Bayangkan, jadi tekanan-tekanan publik yang sangat kuat itu akan dijawab dengan performatif, lalu kemudian para influencer akan bilang, termasuk Pak Gibran dan kawan-kawannya gitu ya, mungkin dengan coki dan muslim gitu ya, dengan ketawa-ketawa gitu. Tapi ini teman-teman adalah situasi yang serius. Kita menghadapi pemerintahan yang seperti ini gitu. Dan ketika teman-teman berbicara, teman-teman akan banyak diteror. Prof. Zainal misalnya salah satu yang juga diteror, masih ditelepon ya. Tapi saya lebih oke kayaknya Mas dari Mas Jena. Soalnya saya nggak cuma diteror, dikirimin ayam tanpa kepala gitu ya. Dan ada pesan. Sayangnya mungkin dia tahu saya kalau dikirimin kepala babi agak akan susah menyamaknya gitu ya. Karena saya harus pakai tanah gitu agar bisa sah. Jadi dikirimin ayam saja tanpa kepala. Tapi saya mau bilang, kadang sebagai aktivis dan karena ada pesan terhadap keluarga saya secara langsung gitu ya. They said that I need to shut down my mood to talking about the governance. Kalau mau keluarga saya baik-baik saja, kira-kira begitu. So they put mereka meletakkan pukulan yang paling pas pada banyak aktivis, menyasar keluarga yang mungkin, apalagi waktu itu saya mendapatkan informasi Iqbal mereka tahu anakmu sekolah di mana dan sebagainya. We got photo from your daughter's school. So saya pun di akhir berpikir apakah kita harus tetap diam. Tapi saya berpikir apakah situasi ini harus kita normalisasi bahwa aktivis, akademisi yang bersuara itu sudah resiko mereka untuk diteror, diancam dan dipenjara karena ada sekar yang membela. Saya rasa kita tidak boleh menormalisasi hal ini sebagai risiko yang harus diterima oleh para scholars, academicians, aktivis atau orang-orang jalanan. Di akhir saya ingin bilang bahwa krisis iklim lagi-lagi yang terjadi atau kalau kita mau keluar dari krisis iklim ini karena kita tahu bahwa kita adalah zona dari krisis atau bencana yang terus-menerus, kita harus bicara soal pembongkaran struktur penguasaan lahan. Jadi judul seminar ini sudah menjawab tesis atau argumentasi yang saya sebutkan di sini. Semuanya berakar dari land grabbing atau pengambilan secara paksa atau kesewenang-wenangan terhadap lahan karena pemerintah menganggap itu sebagai apa yang mereka miliki dan masih menggunakan perspektif kolonial. Mungkin nanti Pak Ward akan bicara lebih jauh soal itu. Saya tutup di situ. Semoga kita masih punya harapan untuk Indonesia yang lebih baik. Thank you everyone.
Thank you, Bang Iqbal. I hope that those words not triggering many people here because I know that we're facing the performative government in the moment when military come back, when the police brutality everywhere. And until now, we still have probably more than 300 students that detained in the jail because of they spoke up about this country. So I will give the floor for Brigam because of Brigam has a research regarding human rights defenders, and I think it will be short to lightening up this discussion.
Let me take the opportunity.
Yes. Please welcome.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Good morning. Thank you for inviting me in this very important seminar, international seminar. I've been asked to talk about environmental law in the context of climate crisis and then land grabs in Indonesia. I guess I will focus my talk today especially on how environmental law has prevented or even failed to prevent attacks on environmental defenders as faced by Iqbal just now. Iqbal mentioned a couple of things about intimidation and so forth, but I will focus on particularly the use of legal means to attack environmental defenders. And that's why my talk today entitles Environmental Defenders and the Hegemonic Lawfare in Indonesia. Could you please, the slide? Okay, thank you. And this title is coming up from is based on my most recent book entitled Turning Defenders into Defendant, published by Cambridge University Press last month. And in this book, I aim to understand the contemporary attack on international defenders through legal means in Southeast Asia, including Indonesia. In this particular talk, I will focus on Indonesia. And next, please. So let's get started. In the face of climate crisis, environmental defenders have played a very important role in protecting the environment and also in advancing environmental and climate justice, of course. Their work often disrupts the status quo by challenging extractive industries that support the existing power structure. As a result, they have faced backlash from the power holders, including through the use of legal means and legal institutions, commonly referred as SLAPs, or strategic lawsuit against public participation. In Indonesia, to prevent SLAPs, environmental protection and management law has adopted an anti-SLAP provision in Article 66, which stipulates that any person who fights for the rights to good and healthy environment should not be charged through criminal proceedings and sued through civil procedure. Despite this anti-SLAP provision, attacks on environmental defenders in the country using legal means have persisted. Next, please. In this presentation, I place attacks on environmental defenders through legal means within the framework of lawfare, because I disagree with the idea that defending the environment in Indonesia, especially by indigenous peoples, should be reduced to simply exercising the right to participate in environmental matters as conceptualized under the concept of SLAP. Protecting the environment should be seen as a matter of survival because the environment is their means of livelihood. Following Kamarov and Kamarov, I believe lawfare to be understood as the resort of legal instrument to the violence inherent in law to commit acts of political coercion. Therefore, there are two forms of lawfare. Here, first one is insurgency lawfare, meaning that the use of law to protect, to defend the livelihoods of the indigenous peoples, of local economically marginalized communities, or in law and society literature, it's usually termed as legal mobilization by the powerless. And the second one is hegemonic lawfare, the use of law to maintain hegemony of the power holders, or legal mobilization by the powerful. That's why I call attacks on in front of defenders carried out through legal means as hegemonic in front of lawfare. Using lawfare as a framework here allow me to examine dimension of legal attacks beyond their legal domains, including their geographies, weaponry, externalities, and also not to mention resistance. Methodologically, I analyze data from court cases directories, NGO database, news outlets, and NGO and international organization reports. In Indonesia, in particular, from 2010 to 2025, there were 84 cases involving 226 in front of defenders, including women, about 5% of this targeted attack. And let's see what I have found. First, I'll describe the findings on geography of lawfare by mentioning the subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction, and sectoral jurisdiction. Subject matter jurisdiction concern the legal procedure used to target and front the defenders. In Indonesia, criminal justice system has been the primary mode of lawfare, counting for 92.8% of the total lawfare in Indonesia. Civil proceeding or civil procedure counted for 7.2%, yet the total compensation demanded by plaintiff in this civil procedure reached $247 million or equals to Jakarta regional budget. And then move to the territorial jurisdiction. In front of defenders in Indonesia have faced legal action or legal attacks across the archipelago. Java is the most populous region in Indonesia, had the highest number of attacks, or 36%, because of its concentrated infrastructure project, not to mention because of the national strategic project initiated by Jokowi took place in this island. And then after Java was followed by Sulawesi, Sumatra, Kalimantan, Bali Nusa Tenggara, and Maluku and Papua. Then if we look at the year where the lawfare occurred, there was a significant increase in the use of lawfare around, supposed to be the year. Yep, up next. Yeah, this is the year. There's a significant increase of the use of lawfare in 2017 and 2018, where national strategic projects were implemented and challenged by affected communities. Their struggles were then contained through legal means, including criminal proceedings. If you look at cases from 2022, it seems to be declining, but that's not really the case because I still analyze these ongoing cases since 2022. And when we look at the, look at the sectoral jurisdiction. A resource-based economy, as like mentioned by Iqbal just now, also shapes how legal action are used to silence dissent voices against extractive industry. Two dominant sectors for legal action cases in Indonesia are the forestry and plantation sectors, and then the mining sector in the second. These sectors have contributed significantly to the national economy and are closely connected to the political and economic elites. So Iqbal mentioned about the research, mentioning that almost majority of the parliament members are associated with the extractive industry. This mentioned a lot, and the connection between extractive industry, the use of lawfare, and attack on in front of the defenders. And the government has strong incentive to expand this sector to increase national production. In Indonesia, the forestry and plantation sector accounted for more than 39% of lawfare cases, while mining counted for 28%. The energy sector has become concerned due to rapid industrialization and increased energy demand. The government has expanded and accelerated the construction of power plant, especially coal-fired power plants, to meet this demand of energy. Those who challenge the construction of these coal-fired power plants have faced legal intimidation, has faced legal attacks. This, for example, in the case of Sawin, Sukma, and Nanto, who have fought against Indramayu coal-fired power plant. And when we talk about weaponry, as mentioned above, criminal law has been used to silence in front of defenders. In Indonesia, crimes against public order have accounted for at least 19% of the cases over the past 15 years. Many of these cases are linked to street demonstration, blockage, direct action as a common forms of resistance launched by affected communities or indigenous people. This makes it easier for the companies, state officials, vigilant groups funded by the companies to infiltrate and to provoke protesters into rioting and breaking the law. After the crimes against public order, online defamation has also been weaponized to intimidate in front of the defenders, especially after COVID-19 pandemic, when in front of the protests turned into social media, when during COVID-19 there was a strict public health measure where protests then turned into social media. Social media platform become a place where the activists try to raise their concern. The third crimes was crimes against mining, especially Article 162 of mining law, which sanctioned those deemed to disrupt mining activities. The case of 11 members of Maba Sangaji shows how indigenous community of North Maluku resisting nickel mining was convicted for disrupting mining activities because they confiscated excavator keys that destroyed their forest and polluted the river. And also concern has emerged in the use of crimes against state ideology and symbol to intimidate them from the defenders in Indonesia more currently. The most serious case in this context is Budi Pego case. Probably you know about the case. Budi Pego is a farmer and local organizer defending their forests and mountains in Banyuwangi, East Java, from a gold mining company owned by several Indonesian tycoons. One of them has been mentioned by Iqbal, related to Tohir family. And during a demonstration, a banner containing hammer and sickle, a communist symbol, was found by the police. As a coordinator for the demonstration, he was arrested and accused of spreading a prohibited communist ideology, a very serious crime in Indonesia, as communist ideology is considered a threat to the national ideology of Pancasila. Then he was convicted for 4 years in prison. And this is the outcome of the lawfare. You may see yourself. Comparable to the US and Canada, the outcome of legal action utilizing civil procedure are relatively unsuccessful. In those countries, Indonesia, US, and Canada, the rate of dismissal in legal action utilizing civil procedure are relatively high following the adoption of anti-SLAPP provision. The majority of civil lawsuits aimed at intimidating the defenders were rejected by the court. This is probably because judges are able to distance themselves from the parties involved in the civil dispute. But there will be the different case when we try to bring the pictures of the criminal law. In contrast, the outcome of the civil proceedings, those of criminal proceedings are rather depressing. In Indonesia, 66.80% of the cases found defendants to be convicted or guilty, and only 9% not guilty. And then those who are convicted, they were sentenced to 3 months to 4 years in prison. And interestingly, if you look at the orange one, pending 21%, so about 21% of the cases are pending. Many are on hold due to the bail and also because of they are not ready for court proceeding. Law enforcement officers also use postponing criminal proceedings as a lawfare tactic. They serve at least 2 objectives. First, delaying proceedings without any time frame prolong chilling effect on the defenders, leaving them without any certainty about how long they will remain labeled as a criminal defendant. Second, a pending case can be used as a form of blackmail to threaten the defenders if they continue the struggle. If they refuse to stop, then the criminal proceeding can be reopened at any time as the bargaining chip. So another interesting case, there is a concept of restorative justice as well. Restorative justice has been abused in order to be used as a bargaining chip by the police for the defenders. Here, then we move to the externalities. The externalities of lawfare. Here, externalities refer to consequences intended to be imposed, targeting both individual defenders and groups involved in environmental movement. As a strategic legal action, lawfare aims to create externalities, meaning consequences for environmental movements beyond the actual legal cases. Creating externalities involves 4 modes of transformation. The first is issue transformation, in which lawfare turns environmental or climate justice issues into criminal conduct or private dispute in the civil law. This means that it reduces the political dimension into a legal issue. The second is forum transformation, resistance that often takes place in the public forum or public sphere where many people can participate is shifted by lawfare to the court, an exclusive forum where only permitted actors speak using legal technical language. Third is conflict transformation, where lawfare turns environmental conflicts or agrarian conflicts as the root cause into a conflict of interpretation of the law. The last is the subjectivity transformation. Through lawfare, environmental defenders in the court are turned into deviant others, such as communists, terrorists, and other negative labels. Hegemonic environmental lawfare is a strategy to othering environmental defenders, which can delegitimize not only individual, but also environmental movements in general, as the public fear being associated with communism, terrorism, and crimes. And last slide, to conclude. In the era of ecological and climate emergency, we need environmental movement more than ever to advocate for a just and sustainable future. However, in Indonesia, the failure of environmental law to protect defenders from hegemonic lawfare has created a chilling effect on those who protest environmental destruction caused by massive expansion of extractive industry. This leaves the environment without guardianship and stewardship. My finding on hegemonic lawfare demonstrate that unlike the dominant analysis of SLAP, which emphasizes private actors as the one who launch legal attacks against infrastructure defenders. In Indonesia, the dominant use of criminal proceedings shows the state active role in punishing infrastructure defenders. This is even more significant when considering the fact that the criminal offenses used mostly fall under crimes against public order or crimes against state ideology and symbol. These types of crime give the state a monopoly of interpretation on what constitute threats to public orders and threat to state ideology. There are three typologies in which lawfare in criminal law is exercised. The first one is principal crimes of disobedience. In this typology, lawfare in criminal law gains momentum because infrastructure movement articulate their resistance through principal criminal conduct or the act of disobedience, such as trespassing or forgery in the case of Robandi and others in Sungai Liat, for instance. The second one is trump-up crimes. In this context, lawfare exercise by using trump-up crimes or made-up crimes, like in the case of Budi Pego, who was convicted for spreading communist teaching. And the last one, conduct of self-defense. Here, criminal law is used in lawfare when infrastructure defenders engage in self-defense, and this conduct is then treated as a crime. This happened in the case of Taryani and others in Indramayu, when during a mass protest against Indramayu coal-fired power plant, an elderly woman was strangled by the company security guard. Taryani and other fellow protesters then tried to protect these women by hitting the guard. Finally, Taryani and others were convicted of assault against the security guard. And furthermore, in the legal proceeding, environmental conflicts as the root cause of lawfare tend to be isolated from the criminal charges. Through hegemonic lawfare, infrastructure defenders are turned into deviant others, such as criminals or communists, or in the Philippines, there's a phenomena called red tagging, for instance, where infrastructure defenders are associated with communist insurgency. That's why they red tag. And this is very important because this bad label or bad image prevents public support for infrastructure movement. Although we know that infrastructure movement need public constituency in order to push and transform the existing power structure. I guess I will stop here. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Bligam. This hegemonic lawfare actually probably increasing because of today's our performative government just enacted the new penal code and also the new procedural criminal code. It's now also discussed in this law school. So it's been a very dynamic condition. Thank you, Bligam, for the presentation. I'll go to Prof. Ward. Time is yours, Prof. I think it will be crystallized the other speakers' discussion and reflect to your research. Time is yours. You will use the podium. Yeah.
Thank you, Sagar. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for having me at this seminar. It feels like a nice fulfilling of the circle to be back here, because my first project, my first work on Indonesia was 15 years ago, more to start in 2009, actually, with the project on access to justice with Ricardo and Harlambang, who I, after that, worked on politics, and we didn't have much chance to interact. But now, so I'm happy after all that time to be back in contact again. So thank you for the invitation. So I'll speak in English. I'll settle the discussion with Iqbal later whether I speak better English than better Indonesian than he speaks English. But kalau nanti dari sisi tanggung jawab mau bertanya dalam bahasa Indonesia, silakan aja, we can do bahasa campur lah. Walaupun jawaban agak pora-poranda saya agak. So I will take up a question that is simple to ask but relatively difficult to answer, which is, why is it so easy to take the land of rural Indonesians? And that's a question that has been underlying some of the presentations we've been hearing, such as by Dorothea in the case of the National Strategic Project in Merauke. Why is it so easy to take land of Papuans for the purpose of this project? But it also came up in Mas Iqbal's presentation linking climate change and this land grabbing. Why is that power of exclusion, as he called it, so strong in Indonesia? And what part of my answer I will relate actually to Mas Agung Verdana's presentation on lawfare, which is where some of the answers lie. But the main answer to why it's so easy to take land from Indonesians lies in, I would say, a concept of rightlessness. Often when we discuss this question, we get into the complexity of particular sectors, particular laws, regulations, hukum adat, all sorts of things. But if we step back from all that complexity, I think one main concept that we need to look at is rightlessness, and also particularly how rightlessness is produced. That it's not something in the law, something fixed, written down, but rather that rural Indonesian face a situation where they have very little effective protections of their rights. And this lack of protection is a production of both legal machinations, legal tricks, if you like, and informal political machinations. And I will talk about both in the context of my research on palm oil conflicts. So of conflicts between palm oil companies and rural Indonesians who protest against their land being taken away from them for the purpose of making plantations. To take you to that context of these conflicts, I take a short part of the trailer, so it's like the summary of the summary, of a documentary that I made with Watchdog on these conflicts called Tanah Moyangku. For those interested, we will be screening this documentary, I understood, thanks to students here, tomorrow at 1 o'clock. But here's a very short part of that trailer to just get us started. Hope it works, which is not sure if it works from here. Mungkin bisa jalankan lihat dari sana, dari kembali ke sini. Click it back. I think you have to click in the slide if you can. Kembali. Yang slide yang tadi? Bisa klik dalam di slide ini? Ya, yang ini. Ya, yang ini. Ya. Ya. Oh, it looks like we might not have sound. But still, I guess I can then do the sound. This is my co-researcher Afrizal attending some of these demonstrations. And this documentary portrays the actual struggles of protests that are happening right now across Indonesia. We're talking Consortium Pembangunan Agraria estimates, I think currently 4,000 conflicts, half of them related to palm oil. And these are conflicts largely about people trying to defend their land when companies are moving in and about to take their land. And if we take a very superficial look at these conflicts, a few things are then important to already highlight, which is yang berikutnya. Slide berikutnya. Yeah. That actually a lot of these conflicts emerge that are actually out of legal violations. That people actually have a right to give consent or withhold consent when companies come in and want to incorporate their land into a plantation. This is the FPIC that Dorothea mentioned. But actually often people companies fail to obtain that consent. Also people have a right to profit sharing, which in context of plantations often called plasma or inti plasma, which often is not implemented or not implemented in a transparent way. Related to that, there are all sorts of legal violations of palm oil plantations. I think about 21% of plantations are established illegally inside forest estates, or do not have the required licenses. And there's often a lot of intimidation and violence. So this is a situation where we're talking about rights that on paper people do have, but are very difficult to implement. And when people do try to address these violations, such as their land being taken away from them or that they do not get the profit sharing that they were promised, they tend to fail in addressing these grievances. Here you see some findings of our research project. We studied 150 conflicts with a group of NGOs from 4 provinces, Riau, West Sumatra, West Kalimantan, and Central Kalimantan. And we found that out of these 150 conflicts, only in 68% people did not feel they managed to address their grievances at all. At best, they got a little bit more CSR money, but the grievance about their land being taken away from them or no profit sharing was not addressed. So why is that? Why is it so difficult that actually land can be taken away from them, but it's difficult to stop it, and it's difficult to stop all these legal violations of companies? So if we move on, the answer that I want to give is hidden behind this, the picture here, but it is that actually this is due to rightlessness and a particular production of rightlessness. Now let me clarify that by getting into the concept a little bit. It's important to make a distinction between de jure rightlessness or de facto rightlessness. Or, as I do in the book Kehampaan Hak, the difference is between ketidakadaan hak and kehampaan hak. This is not a situation of de jure rightlessness, because Indonesian citizens have rights that are formulated in laws and regulations in the constitution, such as those to withhold consent, to profit sharing, to protest, to express their disagreement. But it's rather a situation where it's difficult to realize those rights, untuk menyatakan hak itu. So this is why in Indonesian we came up with the word kehampaan hak. It means there is a right on paper, but in practice it's empty. It is very difficult to realize in practice, which means there's a big gap between rights on paper and rights as realized. And this I want to get into. Why is that? Where does that gap come from? So this is the research project that is behind the presentation that I'm doing now. I'll keep that brief. So I will argue that there are 3 sources of this rightlessness, 3 mechanisms towards this it's produced, of which the first goes back way in history. And that is that already secara de jure, already legally, the rights of Indonesian citizens are very much curtailed, limited much more than in many other countries. And this goes back, I would argue, to colonial policy, and particularly the agrarian law, agrarische wet, that was adopted by the colonial rulers in 1870, so over 150 years ago, which has this line, actually very short, but very important for Indonesian history, which says, in Dutch here, that any land that is not yet owned privately becomes domain of the state, or in other words, owned by the state. And with that line, with one stroke, basically with one stroke, the colonial state came to possess about 75% of Indonesia's landmass, most of it, meaning. And it's clear why that was done. At that time, they abolished the cultivation system, but the colonial enterprise still needed to make a profit. So in this way, they acquired the land that could then be handed out for, at that time, the tobacco plantations, the rubber plantations, and later also the palm oil plantations, providing the colonial entrepreneurs with easy and cheap access to land. Now, you would say that with independence, that colonial instrument would be abolished. But that's not what happened. This domain declaration lives on. Laws have changed, and also the wordings have changed. So formally, the state has abolished the domain declaration, but instead they changed it. The state changed it with something called hak menguasai negara, or not the right of the state to own the land, that was the colonial time, but to control the land. And that is still the case. Now the landmass that the state controls is reduced to about 63% of Indonesian total landmass, which is still huge. And this landmass is called kawasan hutan, an administrative category, which doesn't mean it's actual hutan, it's actual forest, but rather it is land administratively called like this, meaning it's controlled by the state, and it practically means Indonesian citizens cannot get legal ownership on that land, cannot get certificate. That is behind a lot of these conflicts, because actually companies can get a license for such lands, sometimes illegally, or sometimes because they can get izin pelepasan hutan, so they can get their concession excised from the kawasan hutan. So these situations create the paradoxical situation that citizens cannot take control, legally own the land, do not have proof that it holds up in court, but companies can move in and they can have a license that is legally strong. So that creates a sense of injustice and leads to conflicts that people who've been for generations living on land suddenly feel, how does this company move in and can claim control over our land? So that's the first mechanism. But there are also other mechanisms going on that contribute to this rightlessness. And the second one is a legal machination, one that I, for want of a better word, am calling the backdooring of the law. Peraturan atau hukum atau undang-undang yang dipintu belakangin, if you like. And this is due to the fact that Indonesia's legal frameworks are multi-layered. You often have a umbrella main law, like the plantation law or the Undang-Undang Pokok Agraria, or the mining law, that stipulates things and which often still include rights for people, like the right to withhold consent or profit sharing that I mentioned earlier. But then in the implementation regulations or subsequent laws, there are inserted inserted are certain provisions that undermine or in effect nullify those legal protections. And here on the next slide, there are a few examples. AMDAL. In the overarching laws, there is obligations to companies when they move in and establish mines or plantations to check and ensure there's no massive environmental damage. But in practice, in the Omnibus Law in 2020, this was legally backdoored when the procedure for drawing up the AMDAL was weakened to such extent that it became a meaningless exercise. The right of people to provide free and prior and informed consent, also mentioned by Dorothea, in the implementing regulations, so unclear what this actually means that it's easily to evade. Now, this plasma, the third here example mentioned, it's in the 2007 law that companies should provide this profit sharing. But then in a small line in the 2013 regulations, it said that yes, companies should provide 20% of the land that they take from community as plasma, but this 20% can come from outside the concession area. Result is that companies say, oh, you just find your plasma land. If you find it, we'll give you the plasma, which often cannot be found. Other examples can be given, but the main point is this is the mechanism of legal backdooring. On paper, it seems there are still rights, but because of underlying implementing legislation, it's actually relatively meaningless. Moving on to the third mechanism, my apologies for the slide here. The third mechanism is the informal one, and Iqbal already went there, which is the very close, collusive relationship between politics and business in Indonesia. There are regular exchanges of favors that undermine implementing laws and regulations through, at the local level, bribery, setoran, handing out money to local authorities, to the middle level, more the form that companies do campaign contributions to politicians and in return get the authorities close their eyes when there are violations, or help the company when communities protest against them. But this is also happening at the national level. To come back to the Merauke example, the main reason why in my community, these communities that Dorothea talked about face these problems with the Merauke project is the fact that Prabowo's election campaign was largely financed by Haji Isam with a rumored 6 trillion rupiah. And in return, he got a large part of the Merauke estate. This was transactional politics. And it's that kind of collusion that makes it very difficult for people to protect their land when the authorities are already partial. They side with the companies because of a, I would say, clientelistic or transactional type of politics. So it's collusive. And there are many examples we can give. This is from a paper that indeed I did with Iqbal, where we found that many politicians actually are in business and have business interests, which also motivate them to side with companies rather than with people. Now, in my final minutes, I could go over in detail, but I would say just look at the book, is how that kind of collusion undermines in practice all sorts of legal processes in how a plantation should be established. It should go through a formal licensing process, it should have informed consent, and it should legally allow community protests. And if there are problems, there should be conflict resolution mechanisms. In practice, this collusive relationship undermines all these things. I'm just going to focus and highlight one thing in the line of what Agung did. Berikutnya. Ini tidak berjalan lagi, maaf. Oke, mungkin tidak berfungsi lagi. So there's also a slide somewhere there on the, we found that in 150 of these conflicts, 789 people were arrested. This is because of this collusion between politicians, police also, and companies, that it's very easy to do, in Mas Agung's words, do lawfare. Use the police and the courts as an instrument to repress protests and to criminalize these protesters, so that basically the protest is weakened and people are silenced, while they have a right to do so. This is another example of kehampaan hak. You would have a right to protest, but in practice it's undermined. So yeah, I'm not sure what I can do to make this work. So there. Maybe the battery is also stupid. It also goes back all this back and forth. So ya, saya mau lanjut untuk tapi tidak ada kontrol ya. Oh, saya bingung dengan. So this I said, this is the repression of protest. So banyak orang yang ditangkap oleh polisi because of this collusion. Yang 789 cases ini. And so because of this, any conflict resolution often is not working, because it depends on courts, but also mediation done by Bupati and Camat, which are also often already masuk angin lah. So they already have a certain interest and got money from the company. So these conflict resolution mechanisms don't work. So the end result on the ground is satu lagi. Is basically a situation of rightlessness. That this combination of what I talked about, legal backdooring and collusive business politics relation in the context of already weak rights, is creating a situation of kehampaan hak, of rightlessness, that basically makes it very easy for companies, whether mining or plantation or even real estate, to take the land of people. And to do something about that, it means we need to look at the production of rightlessness and try to find moments where we can reverse it, such as being very aware of this legal backdooring mechanism. But one particular place where I think we can work to address this rightlessness is, actually it seems indirect, but it's not, is campaign costs. Elections in Indonesia are currently so high that it's fueling this collusion that I talked about. And if nothing is done to curtail these campaign costs, these keselingkuhan, these collusive relationships will only deepen. And these costs are not needed to be so high. It's not a natural result of democracy that politicians are spending billions as they're doing right now. It's because there's an electoral system right now that is very conducive to high costs. And I think to better strengthen the rights of Indonesians, we also need to reform the electoral system in a way that it reduces these costs. So I'll leave it at that.
Thank you so much, Pak Ward. It's very clear that you mentioned about the rightless. But now I think it's time for question. I will give probably each one of you a question first before we waiting to the audience So it's just one round us, and then we goes to others. Is that okay? Or we goes others first? um, I think I'll go first probably because of Deve. Unfortunately, cannot join. Yeah, she need to be moved to another next event. So sorry about that. But I will go probably for first one to Bang Iqbal. You mentioned a lot about the performative governments. And my question is, who bears the greatest burden of those performative governments actually when we are connected to the climate harm, for example? And that's probably the first one. And then I just only go first one. And then for Bliigam, the question is also yes or no, but you can prolong that with the argument. Is that climate justice possible without redistributing of the hegemonic lawfare? And the last one for Pak Ward, my question is about is the rightness a legal absent or its political construction? And how actually law can assign on that, on it, can assign on it, assign. Yeah. I think we can go strong. You can go first, Bang Iqbal.
So because when we talking about the performative governance, the first things that will be happen it's public the high public pressure. So the performative governments in the heading it's when the government's trying to answer the public pressure using the theatrical things or something, and in these situations because our informations it's come from many source or on many medium, and we understand when our governments become a president, they using many influencers that they using a gemoy. So now okay guys, and then they say gemoy. So now we're trying to make a questions. Where is the gemoy when the electoral happens? Where is no more gemoy? So he become Prabowo and these governments become military against like what in the previous election that we see. So that's the situation. So the more burden now it's they will still using the many influencers. They using a medium like TikTok and etc. And I think that's the difficult things to us. The most burden to fight with these governments because of the performative governance. So that's my answer.
So the public discourse already dirty from the
Yes.
beginning.
So-
Before we are speaking up.
Yeah.
The-
The difficulty is how high our pressure for public pressure to the governments, it will become nothing in some day or in some situation.
Thank you, Bang Iqbal. I think Bliigam will connect with that,
Yes.
with the lawfare.
Yeah, the question is climate justice possible in the context of lawfare? Well, it's a very difficult question to be answered. Of course, this question reminds me of what Gramsci has said about the pessimism of the intellect and optimism of the will. Although, from scholar point of view, I'm a bit skeptics, a bit pessimistic on whether or not we will deliver climate justice in this context. Because when we understand climate justice is coming from the idea that we are facing climate crisis, and this climate crisis is not caused by the problem of technology, as we may assume the change from fossil fuel technology to a more renewable energy or climate-friendly technology. That's not the real issue. The real issue is there is a mode of production, economic mode of production that extract natural resources, and consequences of this extraction would be climate crisis. So when we talk about the addressing climate crisis and delivering climate justice, and we need to address this mode of production in the first place. Otherwise, we only be able to provide a wrong solution, or at least a hollow solution, not really touch upon the structure that caused the climate crisis in the first place. So that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you, Bigam. Bigam, so it's a redistributing is much needed right now. Prof.
Yes, thank you. So your question was is rightlessness a matter of legal absence? So it's legal absence on the ground, in the sense that there are laws applicable. And as I said, there are many laws that are protecting the interest of Indonesian citizens. So when I talk about rightlessness, it's not a de jure rightlessness. It's not ketidakadaan hak. People have rights. But it's a matter of on-the-ground absence, in the sense that it's very difficult to realize these rights. That there are all sorts of actions by police officers, by state officials, by politicians, that hinder or prevent the implementations of these rights. That say the right to protest. You have a right to protest. But then the company hires or pays police officials to arrest people who are protesting, or make up cases, and that's the lawfare part, which shouldn't be happening, but because of interest they are doing. Or, for example, politicians, authorities are bought to close their eyes when companies don't have the right license, or did not obtain the consent of citizens when they were establishing their plantation. So it's not full legal absence, and that gives me, in that sense, hope that there are many legal regulations and laws that people could appeal to realize their rights. But it's difficult to do so, and in that context, I might add, people often also lack the means to do so. You need money, you need time, you need a lawyer, or at least some sort of bantuan hukum, some legal aid organization, which is often absent. It's not very difficult for people to find such legal aid, so that even if you are very clearly in your right, say about this profit sharing, it's still very difficult to actually realize it. And that's the form of rightlessness that I was talking about.
Thank you. I think we can open it for a public question. Is this question there? 1, 2, 3. 3 first, I think. And for this first round, please introduce yourself first.
My name is Thomas Schmitz. I'm the DAD lecturer, guest professor at Fakultas Hukum UGM. I have a question to all three of you, also with regard to topics which I have been teaching in my courses. Do you think that the European Union's anti-deforestation regulation will have any influence on these problems or not? Well, under this anti-deforestation regulation, importers of products linked to the commodities or to the forest must submit a due diligence statement that they have checked the supply chain, not only that there was no deforestation, but also that local laws and rights had been respected. Will this just be used as formalism, or will they change something? That's something I would like to know.
Thank you so much. Thomas, next question. Please go.
Thank you. My name is Rico Wibowo from Administrative Law Department. I have Rico, Pak Ward. Thank you, Pak Ward, Mas Igam, Mas Iqbal dan Manik, dan Ibu Dortea ya. Before I ask, I would like to stress that couple days ago, Indikator Politik Indonesia has just released approval rate for the Indonesian government under Prabowo presidency, and the result is almost 80%, 79 something percent, that Indonesians are happy with the government performance. So this statement appears despite of all gloomy situation that we have discussed this morning. Yeah. And in regards to the poll survey, this is not something surprising if we also see from the previous Jokowi presidents. Yeah. We can see roughly between 67% to 75% of the approval rate, or that the citizens praise the government performance. And in Jokowi's context, years ago, one of the causes was triggered by the infrastructure situation that occurs during the Jokowi presidency, which at the opposite, as we know, we also criticize heavily because of the land grabbing issues, oppressing the adat community, etc., etc. So my question is, how can we define this kind of phenomena with a lot of the problems, but then people still facing happiness, or at least giving good approval ranking to the government? What has been missing? So, and what should be done? Well, we know how people, how activists like NGO, legal aid institutions, WALHI, etc., has conducted so many things, advocacy in many areas in Indonesia, but in the helicopter view, it seems that it meaningless because of the approval ratings, which shows or boosts confidence of the government to conduct arbitrariness towards citizen. So that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mariko. The last one in this round.
Test. Okay, thank you for the opportunities. Okay, so this question comes from me being skeptical of the government every single minute. So lately, I've been really interested in the carbon market, and the government has been aggressively accelerating regulation related to the carbon market, etc. Because I am 100% skeptical about everything that comes out of the government. Rasanya kayak too good to be true that our government is moving so quickly on climate issues. So theoretically, forest-based carbon markets are supposed to preserve forests and trees as carbon sinks so they don't get cut down. So how can I connect my skepticism about this regulation to issues of land grabs, climate change, and disasters? Also, shouldn't the ones who benefit be the people who actually protect and take care of the forest? Usually the ones responsible for forest destruction are the government and capital owners, yet carbon market seems very tempting for them. So could this lead to unintended consequences and potentially backfire on local communities? Thank you.
Your name, please?
Muti.
Okay, thank
Terima
you,
kasih.
Muti. Yes. It's a very border question. The first one from Pak Tom is about anti-deforestation EU regulation and the impact towards Indonesia landscape. And then Pak Rico asking about how is it will be prolonged after all the infrastructures creating to uphold the powers and and to prolong this condition in the Prabowo era. So is it possible to move? And the last from Muti is about carbon market. Is there any potential goods on that? And how you guys see that? Who come first? Want to do first? Okay.
Okay, I will try to answer. From Pak Thomas, actually I really want to believe on EUDR, Pak, and also about CSDD. CSDD means Corporate Sustainability Due Diligence Directive, also like EUDR. Actually, we also have anti-deforestation commitment, and in Indonesia, in HTI we already have like SVLK for Indonesia and also FSC for international. This is for market approach certifications, and also in mining we already have responsible mining certifications, also due diligence, also market effort, also, and also Indonesia have a clear and clean. They can sell their coal if they don't have a clear and clean license, and also they cannot sell their nickel if they don't have a CNC. But they still sell their illegal mining, their illegal coal or illegal nickel. And also in palm oil, we also have RSPO, right? We also have RSPO. In Indonesia, we have ESPO. So we all of us already have a lot of kind of certifications about due diligence. Actually, I really want to believe on this, because the corporate or the company will make a sustainability, and also about the ESG. Again, I really want to believe, but we know they still got the money. The market say that we don't will invest on you like Bank Mandiri or any bank say that because we already green bank, we don't want to invest more on extractive industry, and one of the criteria is like EUDR or any certification, but they still have the money. So I think it's look like also EUDR. We need more commitment. It's like if we say like, if we worry about the nickel, about Europe, China, and US, do EU or European Union don't want to buy a nickel from Indonesia? It's come from Raja Ampat or so many. I don't think so that Europe don't want to buy from palm oil or any nickel from Indonesia because of deforestation or environmental hazard. So I think that's my answer. And for Mas Rico about the approval survey, we also have a same questions, Mas. I also don't understand why this is a good. And I also want to questioning about the methodology, but I don't have any authority about it. But in some why are you using in this discussions put the performative governance? I think it's about that, because all of our complaining will be answered in the public with the performative governance. I have discussions like with maybe in here, because we know our discussions what the state problem, but out of the academic things, and when we are in the coffee shop or something, they will say that Prabowo is a good man. Giving a lunch for a children, your daughter is good. Let's say good, right? Sawit palm oil for the country. You criticize Prabowo because you are a foreigner, antek-antek asing. They say like that, and we are not nationalists, right? So they also like that. So the speech well, we can criticize the speech of the Prabowo, but out of our academic situation, maybe they will say that Prabowo is a good speaker, and he will address any problem in Indonesia. Even in the disaster in Sumatra, he said that saya akan kejar koruptor. I will catch the corruptor to ujung dunia apa? To the end of the earth. I will catch the corruptor. He said like that in front of the victim of disaster. It's a very heroic, right? And I think that the people of Indonesia, because we are really skeptical in this room, they need the hero, and maybe Prabowo can be the hero. But as a hero, yes. And this is one of our challenging in the public praise. So that's maybe my answers. And from Bamita about the market approach, we have a lot of paper about the carbon market. If you want to search in Greenpeace website, there is a detailed research about the carbon market. But I want to say that yes, it will be a big. Carbon market is not a climate crisis solutions. The money come from the carbon market is not a money for it's not a climate money. It's not a climate foundation. It's a different things. And so many fossil fuel lobbyists in the COP trying to make carbon market as a climate solutions, but they call nature-based solutions. But they don't want to protect the forest. In Indonesia, they said they will make reforestations, 12 million hectares of reforestations. We know that 10 years of Jokowi, the successful of reforestation is only 1 million hectares. It means we need 120 years to reforestation, the target for the carbon market that Minister of Forestry said. So it's not a solution. And there is a paper from Guardian. I suggest you to read. I forgot the name of the writer. The title is Green Land Grabbing. So carbon market, it will become a new land grabbing atas nama under the name of green of the project. There is a case, maybe we know, let's say, I will say the name. Katingan project, RMU, Rimba Makmur Utama in Katingan, they criminalize the masyarakat adat, the indigenous people, because they said the indigenous people burn the land. So you see that because they will exclusions the indigenous people from the area of the carbon trading concessions. So the different things about carbon market and the other extractive, it's only about the name is a green, but most of this is a land grabbing because they will exclusions the indigenous people or the society inside the forest. But for the carbon market project, they said that for protect this forest, you need to go from this forest. Even though we know that the forest, the remaining forest in Indonesia, it's when the indigenous people and the society protect their forest, not the government protect the forest. The remaining forest in this world is protected by the indigenous people. So that's my answer for the carbon market. Thank you, Dimitra.
I guess I would like to add on that, Professor Smith. Thank you for the question. First of all, of course, the non-deforestation regulation in the EU would not have a direct impact for Indonesia. That would be very clear. But I see from a slightly specific point of view in which regulations out from AUs or European countries like supply chains law, for instance, might play a positive outcome for environmental movements with regard to scaling up alliances between environmental movements in Indonesia and in Germany, for instance, in France, for instance, in other European countries. So I guess that's a good thing. Although in the context of efficacy would be different question. But at least from the point of view of our movement, this piece of regulations produced by AU might play a positive role in building coalitions among environmental NGOs based in Indonesia and abroad. That's my take on that. And regarding Mas Rico, yes, of course, we are very skeptical of that. And then we witnessed this since Jokowi, for instance, how poll or surveys have been utilized for showing the popularity of the government. But what will struck me with this last poll is the fact that the military is having the highest approval. What does it mean? It means that Prabowo wants military to be praised by the society, to be the most trusted institution, because Prabowo wants the police to be replaced by the military. We know that now where we talk about the forestry sectors, military jump in the forestry sectors, to Agrinas Foundation and so forth, in food estate, for instance, it's all military. And for my point of view, from lawfare point of view, the attacks on environmental defenders in the future would be very different from nowadays, because this lawfare was launched when the police became the institution in charge with regard to extractive industry. But when the police are replaced by the military, the face of intimidation will be very different, because the military doesn't have control over the legal proceeding, because they are not involving in legal proceeding, unlike the police, because the police are the forefront for prosecuting people. So that's why they use a legal institution to prosecute environmental defenders. But when the military come in, would be very different. We would see a our memory collective back to the New Order era, where naked violence would be used, disappearances, kill, murder, and so forth, when the military came into the picture. So that will take why this poll very concerning from my point of view. And then the third one is with regard to carbon market. Carbon market is not the issues about regulation. Carbon market is a flow from conceptual framework, because carbon market doesn't really address the root cause of the problem of the climate crisis. Carbon market was introduced in the Kyoto Protocol, basically to provide flexibilities for the corporations, for North countries that are not able to reduce their emission domestically, but in fact to undertake offset to Global South, where Global South have their forests, and then you have to protect the forest, and then we're going to pay it for the conservation, provided that we're going to have the credit out of it, and that this credit will be used to meet our reduction target. So that's the basic idea. It's scientifically unproven, really. How can you burn the fossil fuel in the global north, but in fact ask the global south, forests in the global south, to absorb your greenhouse gases? So that's really a false solution in the sense of climate crisis, because that's only benefiting the corporation, benefiting the state, who cannot reduce their emission domestically. And also why the government are very keen to produce this, to develop this, because it's simply a big business. So many politicians are now jumping in they call it carbon brokers institution. So carbon brokers is very huge, millions of dollars kind of business, just like a Pialang Saham, for instance. Now they are developing their own businesses out of carbon market, because carbon market will be the future money for these entrepreneurs slash politicians. I hope that answers your question. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, let me start with that question on the EU regulations, as I'm the real Antek Asing here. So I'm, like the previous speakers, actually quite hopeful in itself about this deforestation regulation. If it's not forever delayed, the implementation, and given EU's geopolitical weakness, I wonder whether it actually will be as strong as planned. But say if it is, I think it will provide a tool or a mechanism for communities affected by land grabbing to put market pressure on companies. Because that's what we've been seeing in these conflicts that we studied. In most of the cases, companies refuse to cooperate in mediation or negotiation sessions or to come to some sort of agreements, but they sometimes do. And the cases where they're most likely to settle and to come to some sort of compromise is when the community gets an international NGO involved who is able to internationalize the issue in a way that the financial backers or even the markets are aware of the conflict, and then it creates damage for the company. And the EU regulation has the potential of facilitating that such NGOs can appeal to that and say, look, here, your products are not adhering to the standards set up by that regulation. And in that sense, it can have a real positive impact if implemented. So I'm positive. Now, on Prabowo's popularity and on why issues like the one we're discussing is not impacting that, there's an element here indeed about how reliable these polls are, but as the previous speaker said, but I want to highlight another issue, which is that these conflicts and these land grabbing issues that we've been discussing do not, in my view, enter public debate and political debate as strongly and as effectively as they should. And this is partly due to, at least the cases that we studied, these 150s, each community is fighting their own fight. They are fighting against their own company for uang ganti rugi sedikit or sedikit uang lahan dikembalikan, some sort of benefit related to their conflict. But what is not working enough, in my view, is what political scientists are calling interest aggregation, meaning the NGOs are not succeeding in bringing all these communities together who are actually facing the same problem to fight the structural issues behind it, the collusion, the weak land rights, etc. So that the structural issues are not being effectively brought forward into the public domain. So in that, because of that failure, they are not affecting the popularity because people are not making the connection between the land conflict on the ground and policies and behavior of political elites, which there are. So in some sense, one as answer to your question is it's also a bit of the failure of NGOs to nationalize these conflicts from local ones to being actual national problems. On carbon markets, I'm hardly the expert, so I wouldn't say this, but I would like to nuance or to your comment, which that if it would work well, it would actually benefit communities because it would give them an income or money for preserving the forest, and in that sense counter the value that the money that can be made by cutting it down. So that gives people interest to keeping the forest rather than making money from cutting it down. So I see it could benefit and it helps countries or companies in the north, but potentially also in the south. It could be a win-win solution, even if there are many problems in the implementation.
Thank you, Howard. I open the second round. Is that still, yeah? Also coming from Zoom? If it's any. Oh, okay. I got it. Sorry. Okay. Okay. So there's a question from Bu Aida Greenbury. Bu Aida is also quite a friend. Thank you for the question, Bu Aida. After Sumatra disaster, the president said we must be conscious of our environment. We should respect, preserve, and nurture the nature. His statement was followed by an investigation of some companies in Sumatra, with ministers preparing the forest rehabilitation roadmap. Isn't it a good sign? Do you think it will have an impact on how the government develop other programs in Indonesia? That's the first question. And the second question coming from Adam Suharto, coming from UN Wiku Purwokerto. It's a partial because of it directly to Bang Iqbal. Can the state be held legally liable for the 25-27 disaster caused by mining permits issues in the upstream areas? And special also this one from Bli Agung. Why do the judges still prioritize investor legal certainty over the indubio pro natura doctrine? That's very triggering. And for Pak Ward, in the 2024, how has the way corporation influence local and policy changes? I think that's enough, and we can go the answer round. We'll go first. So, Howard will go first.
Okay, we change the order. So yes, thank you to Aida and Anna for this question, because it allows me to say something I haven't, which is that it's very telling and important in this topic that under the Prabowo government, a move has become to seize companies that do not fulfill these license obligations or have plantations inside forest estates. So these are the violations that I highlighted earlier in my presentation. So you would think on paper, hey, is this a good sign, addressing violations? But actually, it's not addressing violations, because what has happened is that these companies and plantations have been moved into this state plantation company called Agrinas, which is owned by basically Prabowo cronies and military and Gerinda friends. So it's actually using rightlessness as an excuse to transfer ownership. That these violations have been a way to target companies that indeed have violations, so it's good to address them. But the act of the government is not to address the violations. These plantations still are inside Kawasan Hutan. They are still having issues, but rather, so then the plantations are not stopped, they're just handed over to a new set of owners, which is, well, it's just Agrina, and it's not, it's just a part of this transactional politics that I was talking about earlier. So has policies been changed since 2024? I think this is the main change, that companies are now more fearing of their plantations being seized, and so they are more worried about violations, which potentially is a good thing. It's just that these violations are not being stopped.
Thank you. From Aida, so is it a good sign? Yes, I agree with Ward. So we need to see it from skeptical point of view, because it seems that what we are witnessing now is player substitution, really, by using persecution of these companies in order to change the players really into agrinas, which it has no has no background in keeping the forest sustainable. But it's also related to what Iqbal said about performative government, in the sense that government then reacted to a particular phenomena that's shocking the public by saying that, okay, we're going to chase the company responsible for this disaster. In fact, by chasing the companies, the government, the state, really try to hide the responsibility of the state within this disaster, because the state seems to blame the companies and bring the company into responsibility, legal responsibility, liability, for instance. But by showing this to the public, then the public would not would not demand the state to be responsible. So that's why I ask NGO, stop supporting the government for chasing this company. You need to chase the state to be responsible as well, because they are the actor who granted permits for these companies. And that's very important for them to take responsibility as well. And also, when we talk about, the Prabowo said he going to bring this company into the court, then it's bring me more skeptics, because when we talk about environmental cases in Indonesia brought by the government, in fact, the environmental cases are the way the government just simply to get new revenues out of compensation from companies. So there are many cases where the government win the case, but compensation are not used for environmental protection. But in fact, they become what's so-called non-tax state revenue. When we talk about non-tax state revenue, then this money out of compensation are becoming the state budget that can be used for destructive activities, for national strategic project, for instance. So here we see how environmental law, environmental cases has been utilized by the government in order to chase the company for pay compensation, and this compensation in order to balance the national budget, really. It's not about protecting the environment, because no money would be invested for rehabilitate this environment being destroyed by the companies. That's the fact. And with regard to why the court, the judges still prioritize the legal certainty out of in dubio pro natura doctrine, well, that's also part of my responsibility as a teacher for the certification for environmental judges in Indonesia. So how I fail to teach the judges in Indonesia to be responsible and to take decision in order to protect the environment as the first interest. But the way I see it is that although courts in Indonesia are independent institutionally, but there is something called corporatism, ideological corporatism, because some of my publication later on will be published soon, talk about corporatisms. Corporatism means that the executive body try to control the judiciary, but this control might take two forms. The first, institutional corporatism, which also we witnessed during the New Order, where the court was under the ministry of the judge, or ministry of the law, or ministry of justice. But after the New Order collapsed and then Reformation era, then the court became independent, right? In this regard, corporatism is not work through institutional arrangement, but works through ideological arrangement. That's why Prabowo or Jokowi, for instance, in 1921, during his presidency, came to the Supreme Court and asked the court, the judges, please help executive in order to proceed national strategic project. So which means that he used the court as a missionary to pursue national strategic project. He's not talk about how the judges should hear a case based on objective impartiality and other kind of rule of law doctrine. But in fact, it's really instrumentalized the court to be in line to the interests of the executive. I call it ideological alignment. So how the executive body using ideology that the court has the responsibility to also to pursue the general interest of the society. So that's why the court should play a role in helping executive as the institution who interpret what the public interest means, constitute, in order to help the executive body to pursue the agenda for the national strategic interest. So that's why when we talk about environmental conflicts, agrarian conflict, when the conflict involving the state, so very often the court would be in favor to the state. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. For me, to thanks Bu Aida for the questions. I note the date when the Prabowo say we need to protect our environmental, and after that there is an investigations about disaster in North Sumatra, Aceh and West Sumatra. It 12th of December. 12th of December, he said like that, we need to protect our environment. And 16th of December, he said we need to plant more palm oil plantations in Papua. So this is the same persons or a different persons. So many joke in netizens say in 12th December is Prabowo and 6th December is Subianto. So Prabowo trying to teach Subianto or Subianto trying to tell to Prabowo. So this is the situations, Bu Aida. I don't think that this is a good sign. And also there is one other contradictive about Pak Prabowo statement. He said 3 times in international or in multilateral meetings, in BRICS open in Brazil and G20, the last in di Belem juga so there is a 3 and the last is in yes World Economic Forum. Sorry, there is a 3 times Prabowo said that Indonesia can hit 100% on renewable energy in 10 years. He said like that. And after he said like that in G20, BRICS, and World Economic Forum, and also in Indonesia when open on in speech on 6th of August, he said like that. Less than 1 month, Bahlil and PLN out RUPTL is the Rencana Umum Penyediaan Tenaga Listrik. It's like 10 years general plan for electricity. They will plan 10 gigawatt gas power plant in Indonesia, and they will build 6.3 gigawatt core power plant in Indonesia. In the same years, in the same month, when the president say, but the regulation said a different things. So again, I asking also, this is a good sign or not? And also, yeah, we know that there is the investigations through this disaster company, 28 company. But we know they using PKH, Satgas Kawasan Hutan, Satgas Penertiban Kawasan Hutan. They using that task force. They only change the owners of the company, and they use that as a negotiations. Let's say, so PKH, Satgas PKH or Task Force Penertiban Kawasan Hutan trying to address a solution to palm oil inside the forest zones, like in Duta Palma. But they're not trying to make rehabilitations in forest zones. But they change from the Duta Palma, the owner, to Agrinas. It's a stain or is another SOE. So this is not, and also in disaster in North Sumatra, in Martabe mining in Agincourt, they are not trying to ask or push the Agincourt to rehabilitate or to reclaim their void inside the Batang Toru. But they using that as a negotiation to change the owner to another SOE under PKH also. So I think they are not really wants to address the solutions or to make a solution, the investigation to as a solutions in this disaster. They make this investigation results as tools to negotiate to the company. Yes. Yes. And the second I think the one can answer is Bli Igam. Can we sue the governments because of the disaster in disaster? So maybe Bli Igam can answer.
Yeah, for sure. Of course, there's what's so called as a citizen lawsuit that can be utilized, and also class action can be used as well for the victims of disaster to ask for compensation due to the failure of the government to monitor the permits and also the licenses owned by the corporation that caused the disaster.
Yeah. Thank you. I will also remind everyone also that the leader of the task force to reform the forest, which is the Satgas PKH, is coming from the military. So it's just adding some nuance on that. Yes, Pak Safri lead that. So I think we run off time. So I think I give the last chance to giving closing remarks. Yeah, even though the problem is not closing yet, and it probably continues, but I think to highlighting things that you want to highlight more. So probably giving the sum of sentence to.
I don't have any closing remark, but I want to emphasize like 80% biodiversity in forest in this world is protected by the indigenous people. So when we want to protect our earth from the climate crisis, we need to ensure that the indigenous people have their rights to protect their forest and to have their forest. So that's my closing.
Thank you, Bang Iqbal.
Okay, that's my turn now. Okay, now we're living in what can be called as a climate emergency or ecological emergency due to disaster and climate crisis that's happening on us. And in this regard, the role of environmental defenders will be very important in order to advocate and fight things against environmental destruction. But in fact, those defenders are being intimidated, are being criminalized, or are being intimidated or punished by the power holders, by a corporation or the state. So here, what we need really, how we work together in order to protect or to maintain or to retain our civic space, to be free from intervention, to be free from intimidation and violence, then could be very challenging in the future due to the re-emergence of the military in Indonesian politics. Thank you.
I guess I'll end by saying that these forces that are leading to the rightlessness that I was talking about are actually intensifying. That due to the increased dominance of business interests in Indonesian politics, this legal backdooring is only becoming easier and intensifying, leading to rightlessness, as well as the kind of collusive relationship between business and politics are intensifying, with the military moving in with all these transactional deals between people like Haji Isam and Prabowo, but also at the local level. Which means basically political sphere right now is not the political arena is not the place to counter rightlessness, but it has to come from places like here, like law faculty and academics, NGOs, Greenpeace, to voice criticism about what's happening and to also here and there give a positive alternative, so to fuel some sort of resistance to this, because the political arena is too infected, I would say, by now to do this. And so that means actually a lot of work for all of us.
Thank you so much. Give applause to our speakers. Probably I didn't have enough words to conclude everything because of this can be another round of discussion, and I hope that the discussion is not stopped here. It goes to your classes, to your discussion in the tempat nongkrong, tempat nongkrong, another room with the governments, another rooms with the corporates, if you interested on that, or probably the place where you can talk it with the people who defending their land. And I agree that land grabs, climate change, and also climate crisis, and also the disaster may be the greatest task for the modern legal system. The question is not whether law is capable of responding. The question is whether legal professionals are willing to deploy it progressively. Legal career choice are not environmentally or politically neutral. Every contracts, every permits, every regulatory interpretation carries climate implication. And I hope that we can have more people who are progressively challenge the knowledge, challenge the status quo, and challenge the power of the lawfare, and moving together to create the real justice for the real defendant. Thank you for a very good place, everyone. I will give back to the MC.
Thank you, Mr. Karbanjaranaji. Ladies and gentlemen, before we conclude today's seminar, we would like to express a sincere appreciation to our distinguished speakers for their invaluable contributions and insightful perspectives shared throughout this forum. As a gesture of our gratitude, we would like to proceed with the presentation of tokens of appreciation. May I respectfully invite the representative of Faculty of Law Universitas Gadjah Mada, Mr. Herlambang Perdana Wiratraman, to present the tokens of appreciation to our esteemed speaker.
Karena UGM jadi tahun yang UGM. Saya backdooring.
Tadi saya bagi.
Thank you, Mr. Herlambang. Ladies and gentlemen, we extend our deepest appreciation to our distinguished speakers and moderator for the rich, critical, and thought-provoking insights shared today. This seminar has reminded us that land conflicts, climate change, and disasters are not merely environmental issues, but profound legal, political, and humanitarian challenges that require a steadfast commitment to justice, accountability, and the protection of citizens' rights. Before we formally conclude, kindly be reminded that the attendance confirmation form will be accessible through the QR code displayed on the screen. Participants who wish to receive the electronic certificate are required to scan the QR code, complete the Google form, and remain present until the end of the session. The submitted form will serve as the basis for certificate issuance. Please note that this seminar has been recorded and will be disseminated for educational purposes. On behalf of the organizing committee, I would like to sincerely thank all speakers, participants, and everyone who has contributed to the success of this international seminar, both on-site and online. As we bring this forum to a close, may the ideas, reflections, and critical discussions we have engaged in today continue beyond this space, shaping scholarship, informing policy, and inspiring meaningful action toward a more just, a sustainable future. I am Dini Mayana, your Master of Ceremony. Thank you for your valuable presence and participation. Have a wonderful day, stay healthy, and we look forward for welcoming you again at future academic forums. Thank you and good afternoon.